let's get into this Kanye or Ye West. He has a lot of things going on this week, and it seems every week. But the thing I want to talk about right at this moment is that he made some comments that George Floyd died of fentanyl, not of police brutality, and George Floyd's family say that they're going to sue him now. Now, I'm not exactly clear on what they're suing him for because you can't sue for defamation. You can't defame the dead. The dead can't claim damages. It's just not possible. So they're suing for pain and suffering or something like that. I'm not sure that the lawsuit has even been filed, but it would have to be some trivial BS like pain and suffering. So that's what they say. They're going to sue him.
I thought there might have been a change on that. Like, did if I just search for what is it? Let's say, 'cause I think Tim mentioned, or I can't remember if it was I Googled or Tim mentioned that they changed it to a cease and desist or something. Did you hear about that? Or I'm looking for it right now, but
Well, on the 18th, it's a lawsuit.
says lawyers for George Floyd's daughter draft cease and desist lawyer. This is
What's the date
also
on
on
that?
it's on the 18th.
What time?
Updated 9:38 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay, so maybe they changed it. And you know what? That's probably smart of them because they are not going to get a cent out of him. They're just going to waste money on lawyers. This is the kind of
Hard to,
thing where you just say stuff to get in the news, you know?
yeah.
Clearly, nothing is going to come out of this. They can't make him cease and desist either. He's just expressing an opinion about what happened. You can say that. For instance, I can say all day that I think OJ actually is the murderer.
Mhm.
And OJ could say, "Well, I was exonerated or I was declared not guilty in a court of law." That's fine. It doesn't matter. I can have
Mhm.
the opinion all day that you're guilty. I can say that the court was wrong. That is my opinion.
Yeah, I think recently the lines between or people the lines between legal speech and illegal speech, I think, have been confused.
So there's no way they would get a red cent out of him. Um, what I find interesting about it though is that this is the atomic hyper red pilling of Kanye or Kanye West or Ye as he is now known. He
Mhm.
seems to just be just overdosing on these things. And there will be another topic we go into in just a moment that just is along the same line. He's not dabbling in being red pilled. He is just overdosing on it. Because I don't even think it's. Listen, there are people like Tim Pool who are still very, I would say, and I find this odd, invested in this idea that George Floyd died of fentanyl. And he didn't die because pressure was applied to his neck or his back or something like that. They seem very invested in this idea. I personally, I don't know for sure. I wasn't there. I'm not an expert in these kinds of things. There were experts there who said that he did die from pressure applied to his body. So I'll leave it at that. I think it's entirely possible that that's what happened. So why would I be invested in this idea that he died from fentanyl? If he died, even if he died from police officers killing him, it doesn't excuse all of this garbage that BLM has put forth. It doesn't excuse nationwide rioting. It doesn't excuse Hollywood celebrities bailing out people who are bad people who are guilty of crimes, none of which helps any kind of police reform or race relations or anything like that. You're just jumping on this virtue signaling bandwagon, which is extremely damaging. I mean, riots are generally damaging. I think people will agree with that. And you're co-signing on all of this. None him getting killed by a police officer doesn't negate any of that. You know, two
So
wrongs don't
okay,
make a right. So I don't know why do I need to be invested in claiming that George Floyd was killed by fentanyl?
okay. So it's one thing to say that they believe that George Floyd was killed by fentanyl, but to say that they're invested in it is another thing. So why do you think that they're actually invested in it?
Well, I would say that you putting forth that idea already shows a certain irrational amount of investment because the issue, the question was litigated, and a court of law came to a conclusion. That conclusion was that he was killed by the police officers.
Yeah, but Tim kind of addressed that, right? And it's kind of just like what you said earlier about OJ. Just because court of law, you ruled one direction doesn't necessarily mean.
No, it doesn't. But I'm not sure why he's so invested in it. I feel that he's invested because he keeps talking about it. I don't keep
Mhm.
talking about OJ being, well, it's old news now, so of course you don't talk about it. But hey, you believe what you believe about the facts of the case, but well,
But I'll
here's
just
the thing. Here's the
yeah,
thing. There's
yeah.
such strong evidence in OJ trial that I can see why you're invested in that because it just seems like such an incorrect ruling. But with the Chauvin slash George Floyd case, it doesn't seem like there is this smoking gun amount of evidence for you to just point at that and say, wow, this jury, they got it so wrong. And I just want to keep talking about it because it's so wrong. And that's why they're invested in it. It doesn't seem
Yeah,
like
but
the
okay.
ruling was so
Did
wrong. It
you
seems pretty borderline.
did you watch or even the excerpts of that Candace Owens? Um, I don't know if you call it documentary
The
that
BLM
came out.
one? No, not yet. We're gonna watch it soon.
Okay, because that I can't remember if I was watching something else that had an excerpt from that, but I'm pretty sure it was in that show that it like she covered the George Floyd case, I believe,
The
and in particular, I remember seeing like there was a screen, saying what an overdose level is for fentanyl and how it was a graph, right? And it was like overdose levels were way down here, and George Floyd's level was way up here, right? It was
hmm
like 10 times or whatever. Um, so the point I'm trying to make is that I think they have been exposed to you know just certain information that makes them think that I mean they honestly believe that Floyd probably died more as a result of the fentanyl than the choking. And so I read through or I skimmed most of that the appeal document, right? And if that's the only thing that you saw, um, it sounds pretty compelling,
hmm
right? And so like I experienced this where for a period of like an hour I was thinking, man, Chauvin just he definitely got a bad, it was an unfair trial, et cetera, et cetera. And I think in that appeals document they even do go into the fentanyl levels. I can't remember. Yeah, I'd have to double check. But then, okay, but my point is, after that, I read the response to the appeal document, and then I went from being sure, like very confident that Chauvin got an unfair trial to I don't know.
Hmm.
So it really just what I'm trying to say is it really just depends on like what information you've been exposed to, and
Yeah,
like
I'm
in this
sure.
case, it is it where I am at right now. Like I'm pretty uncertain. Like I honestly I don't know if I would lean towards he was choked. It was because of that or fentanyl. I don't know, but I could see being if all I had done is read the appeals document, I would be totally on Tim's side. I would be like, oh yeah, yeah, this is
hmm
like that guy, the guy who was wearing the BLM T-shirt, he was on the jury. Like clearly, that guy is biased. Blah blah blah. Like it's and that seems it seems like how could you even? That seems like hard evidence that okay, the fact that there was a guy participating in BLM protests or whatever, how could that guy be on the jury and Chauvin have still gotten a fair trial? It seems impossible until you read in the response to the appeal that it turns out uh, the defense had, I think, three more strikes that they could have used, and they chose not to. Right? So the defense knew that this guy was biased and let him stay on the stand. But if you didn't know that, well, you would think, okay, Chauvin got a unfair trial. So I don't know. It's up for the judge and lawyers to sort this through whether or not he got an unfair trial.
Well, I don't think he had a fair trial. I think it would have been impossible because it's just too big of a case. So
Hmm.
people would have brought prejudices into it. But my point is that strategic. I could understand if you're Chauvin's lawyer, of course, this matters greatly to you. If you're his family, this matters greatly to you. But I think that it's strategically unsound for people like Tim, people on the right, to get really invested in this idea that he's innocent and that fentanyl is what killed George Floyd. Because
Yeah, yeah, I see what you
maybe
mean.
maybe he killed George. I don't know. It's sort of it's a gray area. Maybe at least he contributed to circumstances that led to George Floyd's death. You could say that maybe that's what happened. But we know, and we can make a strong argument that the BLM response, the Antifa response, the celebrity response, the MSM response was corrupt, wrong, and damaging. We can make a strong argument for that. But I can't make a super strong argument that George Floyd died of fentanyl because
Right.
I just don't know. It's maybe he did, but maybe he didn't. So I'm really not trying to fight on that battleground. I prefer to
Yeah,
choose battlegrounds where I have a much stronger footing. And so I don't
yeah.
know why Tim keeps harping. Well, he can keep saying that if he wants, but I'm just
Well,
saying that
I think
because
it
then they
shows.
can then the left can argue that oh you just want to deny facts, you want to deny a
Yeah,
jury's
exactly.
finding,
Yeah,
et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, they can turn it into like a Trump kind of thing, where like you're just being an extremist and then just ignore you. Um, yeah, I think that they perhaps are more invested in just kind of the narrative. Uh, that there's these. It's like a counterculture narrative, right? Or I don't know. There,
It's a very confronting thing to say. And
yeah, yeah,
if you're just trying to trigger the left, then yeah, saying George Floyd died of fentanyl will do it.
yeah.
So it achieves that. But if you're trying to put forth strong arguments that are compelling and convince people in the middle, then I don't think that this is where it's at because there are plenty of reasonable people in the middle who think that George Floyd was killed by a police officer. And I think that's not an unreasonable belief to have based on the evidence. It can go either way. So why are we fighting on this battlefield when there's another battlefield that favors us? Is my question.
Hmm.
He
Yeah,
can
makes
say
sense.
he can keep fighting it. He can keep saying it for clicks, and that's fine. I understand that. But in general, I think that people on the right shouldn't try to die on the hill of oh he died of fentanyl. Well, maybe, but we don't know. Even if he didn't, even if he was killed by police, it still doesn't negate all of our other strong arguments about why the response was bad, why BLM is crooked, why none of this is serving the interests of the country or of race relations or the black community. Those arguments are much stronger.
Okay, but the thing that really worried me about this case, though, is that, has political correctness gone so far, or wokeism, gone so far off the rails that you can't even get a fair trial anymore? That's the thing that is important about the case to me.
I don't think it's gone so off the rails you can't get a fair trial, but I think that there's some cases that are so famous and well known that it's impossible to get an impartial jury. People are going to have an opinion about it going in. And
And
worse
in this
yet,
case,
there is
I'm a
pressure, social pressure to vote a certain way.
right, and I mean not just, I would say concerns about physical safety, right?
Yeah,
If you honestly believed one thing, but you couldn't actually express that in your vote because you were afraid of getting killed,
right. The
that's a problem.
the jury system is not perfect. If it's going to be a situation like this with such a high profile case, people are going to be any one of us who if we sat on that jury, don't tell me that you wouldn't be concerned for 1 second about your safety if you wanted to vote not guilty.
Right.
If that was your
And,
true honest belief, don't tell me that you wouldn't think for 1 second, well, what will be the impact on me at work or my family? People know who I am.
right. I mean, isn't that a huge problem?
It is, but keep in mind, of course, most cases are not super high profile like this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a problem in a very small minority of cases. But in these super high profile cases, I think it's just unavoidable. What can we do? Can we make society. I mean, we can't make society. Well, what can we do about it,
I don't
right?
understand why
Can
they
we?
couldn't make it more anonymous. And
Um,
this is the part where I didn't read. I didn't read the response to the appeal, but the appeal mentioned that I think the judge explicitly okayed. They allowed this to basically, be videoed and show, basically show on the internet or whatever.
yeah, I don't
And
know. Although keep in mind, it's eventually you're if people really want to know who, it eventually comes out. So you will not stay anonymous, even if the trial went to great lengths to maintain your anonymity.
I mean, shouldn't this be something, that we should reconsider? I don't know. I
Maybe
have
that's
no
part
idea
of
what.
something they should do, some kind of reform they should make, at least in high profile cases.
Yeah.
But
And what does it actually mean to sequester the jury?
it
You know?
means they have to stay in a hotel. They can't be watching news or looking at internet until the trial is over.
Hmm. Okay.
That's what it means.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard to
No.
it's hard to guarantee that. I mean, everybody's got a smartphone, so
Well, they take your smartphone away, that's for sure.
okay.